Haribo Jai Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My name is Bahushira Das. I came to Krishna consciousness. Well, I guess my Vartma Pradarshika Guru is my brother, because he lived in the Columbus Temple in the late 60s, at the end of the 60s, 1960s. He stayed for 6 months in Columbus, Ohio, and then when he came home, he bought Harinam Chadar, Bhakti Guided magazine, Shri Upanishad, and he very much was letting me know. He said that the Hare Krishnas are personalists, and I'm not he said I'm an impersonalist. So he said, you don't understand that right now, but if you join them, you will. So then eventually what happened is I went to, in high school I was a bad boy, because I would get in fights, because I was like dressed up like a hippie, had long hair. Anyway, my parents sent me to a free-form school in Framingham, Massachusetts. And there I met my girlfriend, and then one day she came back from Boston, because that's where her mother worked, and she bought a Bhakti Guided magazine. She said, hey, let's go to the Hare Krishna temple on Sunday. So I wasn't in the mood for that. I was in the mood for something else. So the thing is that then she encouraged me, let's go. So we went, and believe it or not, I joined the first day I came to the temple. So I shouldn't have done that, because there's things you have to cut off before you join. And so when I came in the door, Gaur Hari was the temple president. He just passed on. But Gaur Hari Das, he was the temple president, and he said, I had a little chain with a bell on the neck, around my neck. He said, oh, that bell. He said, Krishna likes bells. He said, you're not going anywhere. I said, who is this guy? Then I said, who's that poster? It was an 8-foot picture of Narada Muni holding a veena. He said, that's the eternal spaceman. I said, these people are crazy. So anyway, he said, go on upstairs. So and the temple was spick and span. It seems like it was just painted. Prabhupada was there in August. I think it was August he was there. He installed Radha Gopi Ballava in Boston. And so the whole temple was like spick and span. So I ended up staying, and the thing is that Gaur Hari, and then he wanted to shave me up 3 days later, and then he's just shaving me up. He said, you see that hair in the basket? He said, that's your false ego. That's not you. So I said, yeah, you're right. It's not me. I'm still alive. The hair's in there. So anyway, so then we would go out on Harinam every day. In the morning, we would have one chickpea, one small little piece of ginger root, and then we'd have oatmeal, and they'd plop it onto wax paper, and then they'd have yogurt, and then there'd be an aluminum swirl, because it's an aluminum pot, and then they would just mix it into the rest of the yogurt. They didn't know anything about aluminum poisoning. Anyway, so the thing is that or in Halava too, we would have Halava. We'd have great Sunday feasts. Sunday feasts would be 11-course feasts, or 11 or 12 courses. And we would go to the fruit market, and whatever they had thrown into the dumpsters, we would get. So there'd be like 20 boxes of apples, 20 boxes of pears, or 20 boxes of rhubarb, and all those things we would turn into pies, chutneys, different combinations of that, nectar drink of rhubarb and yogurt. And so, and a lot of people came, and then this one Mataji used to come out with a giant maha plate, and just whatever you wanted, So the first day I was there, she stuffed me with maha, and Halava really got me. So, that was one of the reasons why also I stayed. But the real reason was I was looking for God. Because I told my mom once, I said, I'm looking for God, and I said, I'm either going to die trying, or I'm going to find him. And then, when I came to the temple, then the thing is that I said, well, these Hare Krishnas, they say they know who God is, they know where he lives, they know what he does. So the thing is that I'll check this out and see if this is for real. And then I stayed. I actually ended up staying, and then I ended up joining the roadshow because they needed a drummer. So I ended up with Vishnu John, and this is before Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. There was a bus. Mangalananda was the cook, and also he was the lead singer, and also he was the writer. Gariyan played bass. Mahaprabhu played flute. and Ajay Das was ringer, so because we had a rock opera that we were doing. Vishnujan was the sannyasi, and we did that. But eventually Prabhupada stopped it because the thing is, the Prabhupada said the sannyasi shouldn't be mixing with men and women like that. So, and Prabhupada was right. He knew more than he was saying because there was things that went on. Anyway, so we went to New Vrindavan. We went all over the United States. We were there in Pittsburgh when Prabhupada came there. It's called the Surya Mosque Lecture on the Golden Avatar series. And when Prabhupada came there, all the lights were turned off, and all the seats were from way up top and then coming all the way down like a stadium. When Prabhupada came in, all the lights were off and only the lights were shining on him. And as he came in, he looked like he was floating down the stairs. So I looked at Atendria and I said, "You catching this?" I'm looking at him playing my drums. "You catch it?" He said, "Yeah." And afterwards we asked Mangalananda, and everybody saw it. All the bands saw it. And Prabhupada saw that we were wearing these tie-dye. We looked like butterflies because our arms would stick out and it'd hang all the way down. And it was all, it was dyed. So then Prabhupada saw us, and we had big lotus eyes, gigantic lotus eyes that were painted on. And Prabhupada looked at Shruti Kirti and he goes, "Are those our boys?" And the thing is that then it started the Floaters Club, because different devotees have seen Prabhupada floating, coming up from an escalator. Satyanarayan, Sureshwara, different devotees, Matajis even, they saw also Prabhupada floating when he would come off of an escalator. And then also the thing is, I ended up staying in New York, and I joined the Kshatriya program there because New Vrindavan had been attacked by the motorcycle gang. And the thing is that eventually then also I went to New Vrindavan because I wanted a second initiation. So from 1974, I say for 1 year, to 1975, Prabhupada came there and I got initiation from Prabhupada. When he came there, I got my first initiation in December of 1972, and in New York, Sudam Maharaj at that time. Sudam Maharaj is the one who got me approved for initiation, and then I was initiated in New York when Prabhupada came there. So that was very nice. And I went into Prabhupada's, after initiation in the room, everybody was going out, and I went up to Pradyumna and I asked him, I said, "What does my name mean?" And he goes down the line of the list and he goes, "Oh yeah, Bahushira, I said, "What does it mean?" He goes, "Servant of one who has many heads," or Anantasesha. I said, "But what does it mean?" I was so passionate. So he said, "I don't know, go ask Prabhupada." So I just walked right back in where Prabhupada was, and he's sitting there, and I bowed down and offered my obeisance, and I said, "Prabhupada?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I have a question." He goes, "Yes." I said, "What does my name mean?" And so then I try to say my name. I couldn't say it. And he goes, Paulashva, Paulashva, Paulashva. And he's going into ecstasy. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. Nobody told me before what to do if a spiritual master goes into ecstasy. So I was like totally freaked out because I said, and I just bowed down. And I said, but before I got out, I said, "Prabhupada, I know Bahushira. He taught me how to play kartals. I'm not Bahushira." And something inside told me to shut up. So shut up. Then I bowed down and I got out of there because I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I knew Prabhupada was in ecstasy, but I didn't know how to deal with it. So then when I got second initiation, in Atlanta, Prabhupada came there, and when he first came in, it was the shortest introduction. It was just like for a minute or less. He came in and started, and he just gets up the Vyasa and walks out the door. And like Tomo, Krishna, and Brahmananda were shocked, like, where's he going? Is he going to pee? What's he doing? He didn't say, the lecture's not over. But anyway, Prabhupada went back to his room. And then when he came the next day, he came back into the temple room. And then Prabhupada said, now I'm going to teach you a song. And then he says, Parama Karuna. And he goes, Parama Karuna, Bahundrija, Nitai Gora Chandra. And then the devotees, nobody answered. Prabhupada looks around. You don't know the song? And they said, oh, we've never heard it before. And Prabhupada said, so you all get songbooks, and now we're going to sing it tomorrow, the next day. So what happened is that then the next day, I don't remember the exact order, but anyway, the next day, then Prabhupada, he started playing, thank you. He started playing, and at one point, he's listening, and he tells Shruti Kirti, he said, stop the recorder. rewind. Give me a madanga. And then Toma Krishna said, boy, I haven't heard Prabhupada ask for the madanga in years. You know. So then they got a drum, and it was a dead drum. And then what happened is, then also there was Bhakti Saraswati's appearance day in February. So what happened is that Prabhupada, when he first, so Prabhupada was going to be there for Bhakti Saraswati's appearance day. So then he's looked at the Vyasa-san, because there's two Vyasa-sans, one for Prabhupada and then one for Bhakti Saraswati Prabhupada. Prabhupada looked and said, no. And then Radha Mohan, who made it, was like shocked. What? What's wrong? Prabhupada said, my spiritual master Vyasa-san must be higher than mine. Must be higher than mine. He said, but so the thing is that then Radha Mohan had to figure out how to make the Vyasa-san taller. And the thing is it was black Italian marble with green veins. Very beautiful. It's still there in Atlanta. And so then when Prabhupada was doing Guru Puja, at one point, then he has the Argya and the conch shell, and then he goes, bowl. He looks at Balavanka and bowl. And then the voice are going, bowl? Hari bowl? What? They said, oh, bowl! You know, because you have to pour the the liquid from the conch shell into a bowl. And, you know, they go in the kitchen, they couldn't find it. They're trying and trying. Prabhupada just said, we just went like this. He tilted the conch shell. Now, the Tulsi Devi is about 3 or 4 feet away. And there's no way you could just tilt it like that and shoot into Tulsi Devi's, you know, it's just impossible. So the thing is that the devotees just start screaming, Jai Prabhupada! Because it's like a mystical power thing with it. It kind of went sideways. You know what I mean? This long distance, and then went into Tulsi Devi's plant. And so anyway, it was totally ecstatic. I mean, the devotees were so happy there. I got a second initiation, so did Vaishnavananda. So 2 of us got second initiation. There was many also new initiates that got initiated there at that time as well. The Radhadar Atomic Sankirtan party was also there at that time. So it was Vishwajan, Toma Krishna, and all the different brahmacharis. So it was quite ecstatic. And then when we went to India, then we saw Prabhupada in India, because where Prabhupada would go to all the different temples, and sometimes the devotees would go visiting and catch Prabhupada where he was. So one class in Mayapur, Prabhupada's talking about Lord Chaitanya, and he goes into ecstasy and just leans back, leaned up against his Vyasa-san. And at that time, then the devotees, you know, they could feel these waves of ecstasy coming out of Prabhupada. Everybody could feel it. We're looking at each other, you feel this? And so then finally, one devotee interfered, Trivikram. He starts going, Namo Vishnu. And the other devotees looked at him like, we're going to burn you to the stake afterwards. Because, you know, because everyone could see this spiritual experience that Prabhupada was going through. And, you know, let it go on forever, you know. But it happened the second time, too. So finally, Hansa Duda and Brahmananda. The second time, it was Hansa Duda who disturbed the ecstasy in Mayapur again. And then, so Brahmananda, he went to Prabhupada and asked Prabhupada, so Prabhupada, when you go into ecstasy, what should we do? Prabhupada said, like a little boy said, oh, I don't do that so often. And then he said, no, but Prabhupada, we know, as students, disciples, we need to know what to do when that happens. He said, just chant Hare Krishna. So the thing is, you know, Trivikram didn't have to face us barbecuing him because, you know, Prabhupada said it's okay if you just chant Hare Krishna. And then also, Prabhupada would go on morning walks in Mayapur, and then, so this would have been 1976, because we drove overland from Frankfurt, Germany, all the way to India in 6 Mercedes-Benz vans. We collected for, you know, the Indians say, how did they get all that money? Well, we collected for it. And it took some years, but we finally got it. And Abhinanda had a brilliant idea to do the libraries in India. And Prabhupada, he wrote a letter to Prabhupada, Prabhupada approved. Of course, the GBC never showed, or a temple president never showed Abhinanda the letter. But anyway, he was determined to do it anyway. So he asked me, do I want to come? I said, sure, Abhi, let's do it. So we were van number 6. And we drove overland from Frankfurt, Germany, all the way to India. You could do it at that time. That's when the Shah of Iran was in charge in Iran. So he was favorable to the U.S. And it was just, you know, it was like the Wild West. And there's a lot, that's a whole nother story in itself. But anyway, then so when Prabhupada was there, he'd go on his morning walks. And when he would start coming from Bhaktisiddhanta's Road up to the old temple, then the thing is that the devotees would start doing a heavy kirtan. So I was going to use that as my alarm clock to wake up because I was tired. I was sick. I had diarrhea. Anyway, so I said, okay, Prabhupada's going to come inspect the vans today. There's 6 vans. So Prabhupada's going to, Gargamuni told us, Gargamuni was our temple president, in charge of the party. And he said, the Prabhupada's coming. So I was thinking, okay, Prabhupada's going to come to the first van, that's Gargamuni's. Probably go to the second. Probably won't go to the third. Probably go to the last one. So then what happened is I took the third van. And I go in there and I'm asleep. And the next minute I know the door's opening up. And I look up and Prabhupada's there. And these sannyasis are looking at me like, I'm going to burn you to the stake, And I said, oh, Prabhupada. I said, I'm sorry, I'm sick. And Prabhupada said, oh. And then the door closes and then they go on. And so another one was where Prabhupada would, in Mayapur, you could go around the deities, Radhamadhava at that time. This is the small deities, about 18 inches high. And so Prabhupada would go around and ring the bell. And the devotees would go absolutely nuts when he'd come around to the front of Radhamadhava. And then they would inspect the vans today. There's 6 vans. So Prabhupada's going to, Gargamuni told us, Gargamuni was our temple president, in charge of the party. And he said, the Prabhupada's coming. So I was thinking, okay, Prabhupada's going to come to the first van, that's Gargamuni's. Probably go to the second. Probably won't go to the third. Probably go to the last one. So then what happened is I took the third van. And I go in there and I'm asleep. And the next minute I know the door's opening up. And I look up and Prabhupada's there. And these sannyasis are looking at me like, I'm going to burn you to the stake, And I said, oh, Prabhupada. I said, I'm sorry, I'm sick. And Prabhupada said, oh. And then the door closes and then they go on. And so another one was where Prabhupada would, in Mayapur, you could go around the deities, Radhamadhava at that time. This is the small deities, about 18 inches high. And so Prabhupada would go around and ring the bell. And the devotees would go absolutely nuts when he'd come around to the front of Radhamadhava. And then it would narrow behind the deities, going behind the altar. And so it was like a funnel. And it's filmed. And I was in the very front, and at one time, and I couldn't help it. The funnel pushed me up front, and I couldn't help it. But the sannyasis didn't like it because I was ahead of Prabhupada. So then I backed up against the wall, but for 1 second, you could see my little green Prabhupada hat. Anyway, so Prabhupada would go around, and when the devotees would go around, and Prabhupada would ring the bell, they'd keep jumping off the down and screaming, and you could hear it on the tape. And anyway, then he'd keep going around like that. And so there's a lot of wonderful pastimes like that. When I interviewed Acharya Prabhakar Mishra for the Leelamrita, working under Satsrup, that was in 1978, because Patit Udharana, Brahmachari at that time, he couldn't do it. I interviewed Prabhupada's first disciple, Acharya Prabhakar Mishra, and that's on tape on Prabhupada Memories, book number 5. Book number 5. And anyway, so Prabhupada, this was in Jhansi when Prabhupada was in Jhansi. And there I'll just cut it short, is that Prabhupada was there, and Acharya Prabhakar, he had to go to, I think it was Delhi, I think, yeah. He had to go to Delhi. So, early in the morning he went, and then he came back late at night. And when he came back at night, Prabhupada was bouncing around the temple room, chanting Hare Krishna. And he had this big, long garland around his neck. It went all the way down to his feet. And see, Kadamba flowers are usually only about like a quarter round. Like a size of a quarter all the way around, globular. And but these ones were as big as softballs. I mean, not softballs, tennis balls, all the way around. And their aroma was unbelievable. So Acharya Prabhakar Mishra was saying, oh my God, what is this heavenly smell that I'm smelling? He said, this is unbelievable. And he was trying to get Prabhupada's attention, but Prabhupada was in ecstasy, just jumping around the temple and chanting Hare Krishna. Then the next morning, which is Nandotsava, then also Prabhupada's appearance day, Acharya Prabhakar approached him and said, so Swamiji said, when I came back last night from Delhi, he said, you were bouncing all around the temple room wearing this long garland. He said, what was that? And Prabhupada said, I was thinking very, very lovingly towards Lord Krishna. He appeared, and then he gave me this garland, and I went to touch his feet, and then when I went to touch his feet, then he disappeared. So, because of that, he said, I went into ecstasy. So, anyway, another time, Acharya Prabhakar, after Prabhupada left the planet, Prabhupada wanted him to be in charge of the Gurukul in Vrindavan. Acharya Prabhakar was the minister, or vice principal or something of the Sanskrit Vidyalaya in Bihar, Darbhanga Sanskrit University. And he never came and took that position that Prabhupada offered him, because he was Prabhupada's disciple, first disciple. So then after Prabhupada passed, and during Mangal Arti time, Brahma Muhurta, Acharya Prabhakar had this big brass bedstead, and so then Prabhupada came up to him at like a 45-degree angle behind his head, and started tapping on the brass bedstead with his cane. Bing, bing, bing. Acharya Prabhakar, wake up, go to Mangal Arti. Bing, 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 and kept tapping on the bedstead. Bing, bing, bing. Wake up, go to Mangal Arti. So Acharya Prabhakar was remembering that. Anyway, so